Hello, Dub Nation, and everyone watching or listening to Locked On Warriors. I am Cyrus Saatsaz, your host. I'm actually recording this on Thursday, March 31st. This is just mere minutes after the show that I recorded with Larry Kruger because I am not available on Friday, which is probably the day you're watching this. Happy April Fools for those of you that are watching this. The reason why I'm doing this, I could have taken the day off, is because the show that I hosted with Larry, I feel like was missing a lot of important information and a lot of important commentary that I need to throw in there because the Warriors don't play again until Saturday. And I apologize for the last show's mistake, thinking they were playing on Sunday. They played the Utah Jazz on Saturday. They got 5 more regular season games to go, but they had just recently played the Phoenix Suns in a game that I consider, even though it was a loss in the win-loss column, when it comes to morals, when it comes to, and what I mean, not morals, morale, I'm sorry. But when it comes to the spirit of the team, when it comes to what really matters, the postseason, this was a win, folks. I'm going to tell you why. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. You can follow this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. And I'm doing this live because I will happily address anyone and everyone who comes and wants to talk to me today. So Aruna, sup? How you doing? I am Titan. Thank you. That's really sweet of you, man. It's very kind of you. Sweet might be slightly effeminate. I apologize for that, but that's really nice of you. Thank you so much. And again, I'm addressing anything you want to bring up. But a huge reason I'm doing this show today, and I'm recording this on Thursday, it's going to air on Friday, is because that Warriors game, which from my perspective was last night, for those of you who aren't watching live, will probably be from 2 days ago, was a huge win for this Warriors team. It was a win because the very energy of this squad was diminished. They had come back from one of the worst road trips in recent history. That road trip was an absolute, disaster. It was a cluster F bomb, no matter how you spin it, no matter how you think it went. A 1-4 road trip when most of the teams that were playing were not very good, excluding the Memphis Grizzlies. They shouldn't have lost to the Washington Wizards. That was an utter disaster. They shouldn't have lost to the Orlando Magic. Utter disaster. The Miami Heat game was a success, largely because they were playing younger, eager players. I've been advocating for feels like a month now at least that Jonathan Kaminga and Moses Moody, when healthy, which he is because he's not being listed on any injury reports, they were positives for this team. Steve Kerr came out publicly and said Moses Moody has a role on this team in the postseason. That game against the Phoenix Suns had the feel of a postseason game. The Phoenix Suns valued that game. They were trying hard because they remember clearly that earlier in the season, they had lost 2 of 3 to this Golden State Warriors squad. They know that despite the fact they have the best regular season record in the NBA, despite the fact that they're probably going to finish the season reaching all sorts of marks reserved for some of the greatest regular season teams in NBA history, is tarnished, if not for the Golden State Warriors, or because of the Golden State Warriors, or if not, provided they win, whatever. I'm spinning my head today. I'm a little tired. My point is, the Suns took that game seriously, and the Golden State Warriors took that game seriously because Draymond Green, for the first time in his career, or at least for the first time since the first 2-3 years of his career, was being questioned. He was self-deprecating in his commentary. He came out and said, these losses are on me. He was taking all the blame, and rightfully so. Excuse me. And they had a lot to prove. Jordan Poole scored 38 points, a career high. He lit it up. Chris Paul is a fantastic defender in the NBA, and Chris Paul was assigned to guard Poole a lot. Devin Booker is a stout defender. He was assigned to guard Jordan Poole a lot. The Phoenix Suns are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and Jordan Poole scored a career high against them. And yeah, absolutely. Moses should get recognition from the coaching staff, but the problem is, I am Titan, is that he's only getting that recognition verbally. He played, I believe, 1 minute last night or 2 nights ago, depending on when you're watching this. And my issue is that Bielitsa should not be playing anymore unless it's garbage time minutes or unless you are absolutely desperate for size. There is someone named Jonathan Kaminga who right now is better than Bielitsa in pretty much every facet imaginable. Bielitsa might be a better passer by this much. Not enough to make a difference. Bielitsa might be a better three-point shooter by this much. And I'm only referring to statistics because if you judge the game based on the eye test, Bielitsa's been bricking left and right. I don't trust his three-point shot at all anymore. And why Jonathan Kaminga is not playing major minutes after being one of the feel-good stories of this Warriors season is beyond me. During that 5-game road trip, in the losses to the Wizards and Magic, he played a whopping total of 14 minutes for each of those games. In one of those games, did not even come on the court in the second half. I believe that was a Wizards game. Why? Especially in games that are inconsequential like that, where you should be using those games to develop players and prepare for the postseason. Why are you holding out Jonathan Kaminga? And Arun, I'm going to quickly mention this as well. Is there any news on GP2's ankle? I would not be concerned with this simply because he came back in the game after the rolling it. It was on a major roll. Would not worry about it. Gary Payne II has had a myriad of issues this year when it comes to his legs. And Kruger and I yesterday, Larry Kruger, and really the show we did on his podcast, the Krug Show, I thought was especially awesome. We were just really letting loose on that. If you want unfiltered content, go for that. But Larry Kruger was hyping up GP2. It was the first time that I've heard anyone other than myself talking about how Gary Payne II should be getting really heavy minutes on this team. I've been advocating since October, November. If not before that, he should be getting 30 minutes a night. Gary Payne II is that good. Defensively, the Warriors have found their successor to Andre Iguodala defensively. A huge problem, and this goes to a lot of fingers. Larry and I and myself and even Dieter, we've been pointing fingers a lot at Bob Myers this year for a lot of very questionable roster decisions. And if he lets Gary Payne II go after this season, shame on him. But right now, that's a possibility. Gary Payne II could just walk away. Gary Payne II almost walked away when they put him on the waiver wire before they re-signed him at the beginning of the season. Don't forget that. I haven't. But the point is, I don't understand why Kuminga's not playing more. He should have been playing more in last night's game. That game had such a slim margin between a win and a loss. The Warriors lost that game 107-103. They should have easily won that game. A huge reason why they did not was Draymond Green and that unfortunate turnover at the end when he was attempting to pass it to Otto Porter Jr., who ill-advisedly did not make the cut that would have resulted in the basket for the lead. And Francis, I'm going to play this or show this quote right here. And for those listening to the podcast, I'll try to read these out loud so you're following along verbally. So, Francis Clome, you wrote, Kuminga will be unleashed in the playoffs. Relax. Do you really think so? I mean, I would relax if I felt comfortably about that. And honestly, if it's about matchups, who does Bielitsa match up with ever? Who does Damian Lee match up with? Because he was getting more minutes than Kuminga on that road trip. And yes, thank you. I am Titan. I was on the GP2 train since that battle with Avery Bradley. I love Gary Payne II, man. I love him. What I want to finish up on this first segment is, though, and one thing I did not address on the show with Kruger yesterday is one newsworthy item was Jordan Poole heaving up that half-court shot, and whether or not that was advisable. whether or not that was something that was smart or maybe wasn't smart. And I'm trying to read all your comments. I'm going to try to not publish anything that's redundant. Like Simple Bubble, you wrote, hopefully the Warriors front office is looking at future assets or key pieces that can help the Dubs right now and so forth. There's nothing that can help them right now at this point. There's nothing's going to happen. Any moves that do happen will be in the offseason for next year and beyond. But real quick, Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole should not have taken that half-court shot. Plain and simple. In the simple game of percentages, in the simple game of playing the odds, it is not a high percentage shot. The only player I will ever trust shooting a half-court shot with 5 seconds left on the clock is Stephen Curry. I love Jordan Poole. He's on the right track. But that was not smart. Now, the question is, okay, why did he do it? Well, because Steve Kerr was in his ear saying, hey, these guys are going to foul you. We are down 3. And the simple coaching strategy for end of game decisions when there's a 3-point deficit is foul the shooter before they shoot. And by doing so, the player gets 2 free throws. So at best, they're still down 1. And Jordan Poole was clearly worried about that. And that's why he heaved up that half-court shot. Because I can't remember who it was, if it was Chris Paul, if it was Devin Booker, somebody, maybe it was Bridges, another fantastic defender, by the way, that Poole was assigned to, and yet Poole still scored 38 points. Jordan Poole is, dude, we are stoked on that. But I digress. The point is, Jordan Poole made a huge mistake putting up that shot. He thought he was getting fouled. He was aiming for the 3 free throws, but he should have never been in that position to begin with because the Warriors were out of timeouts. That was why they were in that position. So if Jordan Poole, in other words, let's say the Warriors have one more timeout, Jordan Poole doesn't have to worry about getting fouled and shooting 2 free throws because he could just get fouled, shoot the 2 free throws, foul them on the next possession, and still have one more timeout to bring the ball up to half court. But the Warriors used up all their timeouts. Steve Kerr makes those decisions. And so ultimately, when you look at that decision at the end, I just wanted to address that real quick because, again, I did not bring this up yesterday. Jordan Poole heaved that shot because, again, he thought he was getting fouled and they had no timeouts left. So time was not on their side. And he was hoping for 3 free throws. And Jordan Poole deserves so much love for his free throw shooting this year. I mean, the fact that he is just almost automatic. I know he missed one last night or in that game, but very impressive, sir. So that's why Jordan Poole did that. I don't want to fault him that much. He's still really young. If I'm going to fault anyone for that and for a lot of things this year, speaking of Jonathan Kaminga, it's Steve Kerr. Because Kerr got in his head and told him that. Be careful. They're going to foul you. And Kerr did not leave his team with any timeouts to have a shot at getting the ball and doing it again. And for those of you wondering, well, why doesn't he just take the foul, make the first free throw, and then try to ricochet the second free throw and get that rebound? Yeah, that would have still been a better plan. It's still a higher percentage strategy. But now you're blaming Bob Myers because he gave the team no height, and that drastically reduces any possibility of the team getting that rebound. There have been 2 occasions that I can just think of off the top of my head where the Warriors lost games because they could not grab rebounds on a missed free throw. And now you're expecting the same diminutive team to grab rebounds off their own misses. Yeah, man, I could get frustrated, but look, life's too short. The Warriors do play the Jazz tomorrow. If you want to find out those odds, if you want to find out the over-under and everything else, the Final Four is also this weekend, the National Championships Monday. You got to go to betonline.net. They're your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information from all the latest odds, contests, and player props, you name it. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your latest sports developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, It is where the game starts. And I'm going to address all your chat questions and more in just a moment.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. I do make regular appearances on there as well. These are nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Simple Bubble wrote, honestly, that weird 2-for-1 moment with Draymond was crucial because that could have gotten us a better chance to get the dub. You agree? Yeah, of course I agree. And again, that's where squandering the timeout or all their timeouts was crucial. This has honestly been, I hate to say this, man. I want to make one thing very clear. I'm not calling for Kerr's head. I know a lot of people are doing that, but who are you going to replace him with in that hypothetical scenario? The only name I've heard, and it's been from more than one person, is Ty Lue. Ty Lue's amazing. Look, first of all, Ty Lue has never won more than 47 regular season games in his career, all right? Never mind that. He's not available. So if you're gonna be calling for Kerr's head, give me a name that's realistic. But I'm not calling for Kerr's head. I'm nowhere near that moment. Now, with that said, is this Kerr's worst season ever as a head coach of the Golden State Warriors? Hands down, easily, yes. Is this also the worst season of Bob Myers' career as the executive, as the director of personnel, as the GM, as the president of the Golden State Warriors? Yes. This is an awful team that you have fielded. Awful. And what I mean by that is, everything I say take relatively. What I mean by that is, it's awful in the sense that this Warriors team started the season 18-2. That is one of the best starts in NBA history. They started the season 27-6. That was their record on Christmas Day after they beat the Phoenix Suns on the road. You knew a short time after that, James Wiseman was a complete uncertainty. You also knew your roster only had one center, James Wiseman, who hadn't played a minute, who has all of 39 career games under his belt and 3 college games. And your plan is to just sit tight? That is a disservice to Steph and Curry. That's a disservice to Draymond Green. That's a disservice to the fan base who knows how great this team could be. Still could be, by the way. And I really want to end this show and steer it positively, because that Suns game, to me, outside of the end result, which is irrelevant, was nothing but positive. And Eduardo, thanks for joining in. Yeah, man. I try to do these live things when possible. Dieter, by the way, is going to be off next week. So any shows where I don't have a guest, and even if I have a guest, I'll try to start doing this live thing more often. But when I don't have guests, I'm all about the live portion of it. And yes, Francis Clome, great point. It was the turnovers that made the difference. And here's the great news, because Draymond Green was a huge catalyst for that. And Eduardo, I'll get to your next question in just a second. But Draymond Green had that costly turnover at the end of the game. I mentioned that at the beginning of the show, where he thought Otto Porter Jr. was going to go for the cut. Porter should have done it. Otto Porter Jr. just sat there, just did nothing. I don't know why he wasn't moving. This entire offense is predicated on movement, both with the ball and especially off the ball. But that's something where timing and experience will bring things together. And I guarantee you, the next time Draymond has the ball in a situation like that, Otto Porter Jr. is going to make that cut. And here is the fantastic news from that Suns game. This is why I'm smiling. Here's why I'm smiling. Here's why I'm actually happy. Because sadly, folks, maybe you understand, maybe you don't, the way the Warriors play affects my mood. My sincerest apologies to my wife, who is so tolerant of me watching all these games, who's tolerant of my emotions being connected to the team. It is pathetic. I'm not even going to try and defend this, but it is what it is. It's how I feel. I'm happy right now, and here's why. Draymond Green is back. All right? He had 10 rebounds. Huge. He was a monster inside. DeAndre Ayton was not a story in this game, largely because of Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney also played great as well. But his 10 rebounds, His 8 points, which were big points. He was attacking the rim. He was missing layups that normally do fall, and they will fall, folks. Draymond just needs to get his groove back, and last night was a massive step in that direction. And he also had 7 assists. A huge reason why Jordan Poole had a career high in points with 38 was because Draymond was feeding him the ball. And he was feeding him the ball where Jordan needed to get the ball. And Jordan Poole, my lord, that is something to be happy for in the future. You know, on the last show I did with Dieter, we talked briefly, and it was a purely hypothetical scenario. A lot of the content is for the show to keep things interesting, keep things moving. You know, we brought up the topic of possibly trading Jordan Poole. I would like to express my personal opinion on that. No, I do not want to trade Jordan Poole. You would have to offer me something extraordinary for me to ever consider that. Draft picks are not going to be enough. I like me some Jordan Poole. I like the pool party. The pool party's fun. It's raging. It's happening. It's hopping. I want it. So Draymond Green is back. That was a massive positive from last night's game. He is back, folks. He played like the Draymond Green of old. That Warriors team you saw playing the Phoenix Suns on ESPN. And yes, I did watch the ESPN feed instead of the NBC Bay Area feed because anytime the Warriors are on national TV and they're not blacked out, which is a weird new thing that happens now. It's happened in football for decades, but in the NBA, I never experienced blackouts. All of a sudden, the last couple of years, now I can't watch the Warriors if they're on TNT or on ESPN some nights. I don't know what is going on there, but nonetheless, that's how it goes, apparently. But last night it was on ESPN, and I just love hearing the national feed to gain new perspective. I know what Fitz and Azubuike are going to say. Okay, so they're not going to give me much of anything new outside of maybe stats, but perspective-wise, the national crew oftentimes brings new viewpoints to the table, and I appreciate that. So, Eduardo, you wrote, "Hey Cyrus, do you think the Warriors still have a shot at the third seed, or is Dallas just too hot now to lose it?" I don't think they have a shot at the third seed simply because it's not so much Dallas being hot; it's more so Dallas has an easier schedule. Maybe not easier, but it's an easy schedule, and they care more right now. The Warriors, I mean, the regular season, I mean, this is what happens when you have a team that's a dynasty or that went through the greatest 5-year run in NBA history. At a certain point, you look at the regular season and just go, when does the playoffs start? And that's where they are. And that's where Draymond's head is a lot of the times. And Simple Bubble, I'm going to address your comment in just a moment. I got to first talk about Built Bars. You've heard me talk about these things a million times. I think Draymond might have started eating some of them Built Bars because he looked great last night. Andrew Wiggins, I'm going to show you love in just a second. He had a great game last night. Maybe they're chomping on those Built Bars. You could try the Built Bar Puffs. These are some of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallows. They're fluffy, marshmallowy. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, just like all the other Built Bars that are also covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, 100% real chocolate. These things taste good, yet they're low calorie and high protein. They make me feel full. That's why I endorse them, and they're an official sponsor of the program because I'm making myself feel full with a protein bar that only has 130 calories on average versus 240 for your typical candy bar. Yet, while a typical candy bar has 30 grams of sugar, Built Bars just have 4. It's almost an eighth of the sugar, and sugar, folks, is a toxin. It is horrible for you. And Built Bars also have 17 grams of protein. I love cookies and cream, but you have your choice of flavors: mint brownie, coconut almond. They have the white chocolate cookies and cream. I have not tried that yet. I'm excited for it. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste and they're all about the nutritional value of their protein bars. Just go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, the promo code is LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Simple Bubble writes, I think the Warriors are having either a confusing or complicated time transitioning the present and future with the roster, but ultimately, I think they will be fine in the playoffs and next season. Eloquently put. Yeah, nothing really to agree or disagree with there. It's just a good point. Yeah, I agree mostly. Yes. I wish the youngsters would play more. I wish Kaminga was getting Bielitsa's minutes. I wish Moses Moody was getting Damian Lee's minutes whenever Kerr, for some reason, plays Damian Lee. No offense to Damian Lee. I'm sure he's a super nice guy. In my brief interactions with him, he's always been pleasant with me. He's Stephen Curry's brother-in-law. I know that carries a lot of cachet, but he's just too inconsistent of a shooter to have him out there consistently, especially when you're pursuing a world championship. And again, this is a great point from Francis, who's been lighting it up today. Imagine Steph being in the game, y'all. Would have been game over. Absolute. The Warriors last night were probably, I'm putting this nicely, they were at 60% of their normal self. A, that's how much Steph means to this team. But B, you have Draymond still coming back, still trying to gain his footing, still trying to gain his rhythm. You have Andre Iguodala playing in just his second game. You have Klay Thompson. Oh my goodness! And let's just talk about that real quick, folks. And yes, Eduardo, Damian Lee. Look, I don't mind him on the roster if he is your 15th guy. I mind him on the roster when you're chasing a world championship and he's eating minutes that better players should be using, especially rookies who need experience. Klay Thompson is a conundrum. I love him. As a human being, I consider him a spirit brother. My dog, rest in peace. That's him in that painting right there behind me if you're watching this on YouTube. I can't talk about it much more because I'm literally going to lose it. My point is, I love dogs, and my dog was very similar to Clay's dog, Rocco, except my dog was a half English bulldog, half boxer, but he really looked like a bulldog. I rescued him from the San Francisco SPCA in 2011, and he's my best friend. And I see that love and that relationship with Klay and Rocco. I love Klay. His vices are probably very similar to mine. I'm guessing more of an introvert than I am, but look, man, he's the most popular player in the NBA. I think it's safe to say that. And what I mean by that is I don't know anyone who dislikes him. But Klay, and justifiably so for his circumstances, is playing like a man who missed 2.5 years because he had a torn ACL, the worst injury you could suffer to your knee, and a torn Achilles, probably the worst injury you could suffer to any of your lower extremities, excluding your you know what. And even then, I don't know if that would affect you athletically as much, but I don't think you want to picture it. My point is, Klay is playing like a man who's missed 2.5 years because of two really brutal lower leg injuries. And I love him. Offensively, there are nights where he looks like his old self, but then there are nights like the Phoenix game where he goes 1 for 10 from three. And which is, there's no positive way to spin that. And defensively is where I'm really concerned because Klay used to be one of their most important players defensively. And now when he's out there, he's a step slow. He's certainly a step slower than he was. Devin Booker was blowing right by him. Phoenix's 107 points, a lot of those points are because of the help defense that came to help when either Klay or Bielitsa, when he was out there, couldn't stay in front of their man. And Klay Thompson has sadly become, in a lot of ways, a liability on defense. He's such a smart player that it's not glaring, but it's apparent. I had my blinders on for this all the way until the Phoenix game. I saw it. It's discouraging. It's disappointing. I don't know if that's something that's fixable. Might be, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But offensively, when he's on, it's great. I mean, his scoring averages are actually solid offensively. And I'll try to look that up in a second while I'm talking here. But the defense is not good. Going 1 for 10 from three is atrocious. The only nice part about it is that his bricks aren't like Andrew Wiggins bricks where they're bouncing 25 feet. So it actually makes it easier for Warriors offensive rebounding. Although I could hear two sides to that argument as well. If the ball goes 25 feet on an offensive shot, maybe it's easier to get an offensive rebound, but whatever. That's a discussion for another day. Klay Thompson right now is averaging 18.7 points per game. That is solid. That's just slightly below his career average, by the way. And he's also averaging 3.9 rebounds, 2.8 assists. For him, good numbers. For your average NBA player, those are great numbers. But those aren't great numbers by Klay's standards. And Klay Thompson's 3-point percentage is, for this year, 36.5. That's not good. All right. I mean, again, by your normal NBA standards, fine. Great. Keep shooting. But by Klay's standards, in his career 3-point shooting percentage is 41.6. So he's 5 percentage points below what he normally shoots from the three. That's significant. And his field goal percentage, which for his career is 45.7, is now down to 41.3. So he's not as efficient as he normally is. Defensively, he's a borderline liability, and that's a problem. And really, like, there's only two things you can do about this. One is you have a major sit down with him and basically say, look, man, you've been gone from this game for 2.5 years. We don't know yet if you're going to return to your old form. But regardless, and this is where Kerr just has to have a long conversation with him, but Kerr is just going to have to basically tell him, look, you have not earned the right to just, cock pull trigger like you normally did. You have to be more selective with your shots. You got to start looking for other players at times because Klay's just shooting like he used to shoot, but he's not making it like he used to. So something has to give there. Either the shot attempts have to go down a little bit, either there has to be more ball movement. I used to coach youth basketball, and sometimes when you have a team with like one superstar player and he shoots all the time, you have to start implementing little rules like, okay, minimum 3 passes each possession or something like that. Obviously coaching an NBA player is night and day versus something like that. But the point is something has to change there with him offensively. You can't just let him keep doing what he's doing. My idea, which I first approached and proposed a few weeks back, I think with Kylan Mills, was to bring him off the bench, but approach it with him in the sense that Manu Ginobili, future Hall of Famer, did the same thing. He still finished games. And this will give a chance for Klay maybe to, I don't know. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again if it's not working. That's literally what the definition of insanity. I think Albert Einstein defined it as such. You just can't keep doing that. And Klay is struggling. 13 points on 1 for 10 shooting from 3 is not good. So, yes, I am tight. And it might be time to send Klay to the bench because defensively, he's a massive liability. And Eduardo, you wrote, what was that one player on the Wizards that had beef with Klay? Oh, yeah, that was that fight. I actually can't remember. If you can Google search that and send another message, let me know. Yeah, you're referring to, this was like a year or two ago when Klay was a guest commentator, like you wrote, on NBC Sports Bay Area. And there was a little jawing back and forth at the end. And Klay started taking it personally, backing up his own team while he's broadcasting. I cannot remember who that player was. That was funny, though. And speaking of beefs, by the way, I did love the Draymond Green, Jay Crowder back and forth. Jay Crowder is just a pest. And I don't know if Draymond Green has an issue with him because Jay Crowder has beef with a lot of people, including LeBron James, who has suddenly become Draymond Green's best friend, for better or worse. So that's a topic for another day because you could do like a whole show on that. But they were going back and forth, and I don't know if you saw the clips. I promoted it on my Twitter account at Doxer Roadshow. I showed the video. Draymond Green wanted all that smoke. They were going back and forth, and Draymond Green at the end, they had to separate them. It wasn't like aggressive. It wasn't, I don't think it was that close to fighting. But Draymond Green, you could read his lips clearly enough where he wanted to fight. He was like, let's just go right now. Let's just do this. Yeah, Jay Crowder's a pest. And speaking of pests, Chris Paul is the ultimate pest. He's still pulling that stupid, ridiculous swing through move that draws fouls. It's so petty. It's so annoying to watch, and I cannot wait for Stephen Curry to send that bum home again. Sorry, bum's a strong word. I do apologize, but he's cheap and he's dirty. He is. He has literally been the cause of other individuals' injuries. His petty cheap play is the cause of people fouling out. That would never fly on a blacktop. And most fans are not familiar with the feeling of playing in an NBA game. Most fans who have played understand competitive stuff, whether it was as a kid in CYO basketball or going through junior high school basketball, in rec leagues, and most importantly, playing on the blacktop, just standard half court type games. The stuff Chris Paul pulls, kind of like the same stuff James Harden pulls, would never fly ever in a scenario like that. And it's just cheap, man. Chris Paul should be ashamed of himself. I do not understand why he gets so much of the respect that he earns from fellow players and whatnot. Yes. Does he have incredible handles? Absolutely. Is he a phenomenal passer and mid-range shooter? Of course. Is he a dirty player as well? Yes. Just Google Chris Paul dirty on YouTube and thank me later. But yeah, so that the Jay Crowder Draymond Green thing was really funny. And going back to Klay, just to wrap things up, and Simple Bubble, you're talking about who would be the preferred first round opponent. You mentioned the Jazz and the Mavericks. You're leaving out the Denver Nuggets, who is the team that they would actually play if the season ended today, which I would prefer the Mavericks or the Jazz any day, just because Nikola Jokic is, I mean, that's not an easy player to deal with. But with the starting lineup, you either have to do one or two things. You either, when Steph comes back, I absolutely loved the starting lineup that had Steph, Jordan Poole, and Klay Thompson on the court together. That was a lethal offensive lineup. You could see teams just trying to scheme that and having no such luck. I love it. So if you're going to start Klay, I want a lineup with Steph, Jordan Poole, and Klay, because that's a 3-guard lineup that is giving opposing teams nightmares. The problem with that lineup, though, is do you bring Wiggins off the bench? Because Draymond and Looney have to be your starting front court for this team to have any chance and not get completely beaten up because of second and third chance points. So do you bring Wiggins off the bench? Now, I'm steering the direction to wrap things up with Wiggins. And yes, Eduardo, thank you. It was Rodney McGruder who was involved in that little scuffle. Andrew Wiggins had a great game last night. He was making his free throws. He was aggressively attacking the rim. He scored 19 points, which for him is all you can ask for. He was playing great defense. To me, the one thing to look out for with Andrew Wiggins to determine whether or not he's going to have a nice night is whether or not he's pulling out that spin move. He pulls out that spin move while he's attacking the rim, and it just leaves defenders helpless because he spins while moving, and his momentum coupled with the spin lets him basically spin off the defender, and he gets closer to the rim as a result of that. And either there's a help defender having to come in, at which point Wiggins can pass the ball off, or Wiggins has the easy two. He's developed a great post game, but if you see him pulling that spin move, that's a great sign. That's a great sign. That means you might have a good night from Wiggins, and he was doing that last night. And the question is, like, should he come off the bench? I mean, logically, yes. Logically, yes. Eduardo, yes. CP3, yeah, but I'm bummed is a strong word. I'm trying to be a little more positive and be more professional with my verbiage here and every now and again. And yeah, Santhosh, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name at all, but yes, Dub Nation and Chris Paul did not have a friendly relationship. But my point is with Andrew Wiggins, if you bring him off the bench, which would ideally be the move, he's psychologically just not that strong of an individual. And I don't know if that's going to hurt him so much in terms of his confidence that it's going to be more of a detriment than a positive in terms of the results you get from the court. And that's why ultimately I think Klay Thompson has to come off the bench. And Eduardo, you're writing, starting to think Wiggins should come off the bench. I'm with you, but I hope I answered that as well. It's like I really think the dude is just, I mean, it's been a criticism of his that's followed him through Minnesota to Golden State, that he's soft. And I don't know if you're going to get results from him if you put him on the bench. I really don't. He might be bitter. He might look down on himself. He's never come off the bench before. Now, granted, neither is Klay, but I feel like Klay's much more of a professional, and Klay also missed 2.5 years. So I really think Klay, I mean, the more I'm talking about it and hearing myself talk, the more I feel like that just makes the most sense. Is just to bring Klay off the bench. And I do want Jordan Poole in the starting lineup, David. I don't think he would be upset. David writes, if we don't give Poole a chance to start during the playoffs, is there a chance he decides not to sign the extension so he can try for a starting spot on a different team? I don't think he would feel jaded like that just because he seems astute enough to understand that the people ahead of him are Klay Thompson, future Hall of Famer, Andrew Wiggins, former number one pick, who plays phenomenal defense, who's much bigger, and who might have a psychological breakdown. I'm being a little facetious saying that, but you never know if he comes off the bench. So, yeah, exactly. And I am tight and you right. I think Wiggins is the one having the biggest issue with staying mentally engaged. I think so too. And if you bring him off the bench, that only makes things worse. So even though logically it would make the most sense on paper, I really do think, Saatsaz, you're right, is that I think when Steph comes back, this is something you can revisit next year, but I think for now, Klay off the bench is the move. I really don't know what else to say about that, but I think that's a call. Anyways, we're on minute 40, almost 42. You folks have a great weekend. I'm doing the live version again. I'm recording this on Thursday, March 31st. So if I did not cover something that broke between now and Friday, I apologize since this is going to air on Friday. But I consider myself lucky beyond any measure to be in this position. I love this team. I try my best to be objective. Thank you, Eduardo. I'm not going to be a homer, but that Phoenix game was encouraging. I think with the exception of Klay Thompson and with the exception of Kaminga and Moody not getting minutes, and it's becoming frustrating. Yeah, and thank you, Saatsaz. That was a great game. I really think that was a great game. They pushed a team that is going to be considered among the regular season all-time greats, and I mean the Phoenix Suns, and they almost beat them without Stephen Curry, with Klay Thompson the way he's playing, with Draymond Green having been out for over 2 months and just come back. That was solid. That was solid. Dub Nation, be encouraged by that. All right. David, thank you, sir. I am Titan. Thank you, sir or miss. I do not know your gender or they. I try to be very open-minded in this world. Thank you. And for everyone else, yeah, I'm on Twitter. Follow me at Dogsurf Roadshow. Follow this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. And thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Thank you so much, folks. Later.